House Government Operations and Military Affairs on Thursday, April 3rd. And we are here today to talk about S56, an act relating to creating an Office of New Americans. And we have Senator Gulick here, who is one of the bill sponsors, and she is going to introduce the bill to us. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I really like your new office. It's beautiful. So the Office of New Americans, I'll start by saying it was warmly received in the Senate. It left the Government Operations Committee with a unanimous vote. And on the Senate floor, I believe there may have been one no vote, but very, very well received, 29 senators voting yes. So it's been very warmly received, as I said. So this is a bill that I sponsored last session. It went to Senate Government Operations, but at the time it was a study, which it still is, but it was a study that was very heavily reliant on state agencies. And I know at the time that committee was reluctant to put even more pressure on our state agencies, which, as we know, are very busy with a myriad crises and so much work to do. She felt that the timing wasn't quite right. The chair of the committee felt that the timing wasn't quite right for that bill. A lot has changed in the last year, as you know. I would say the urgency of having an Office of New Americans in state government has increased dramatically as we look at funding cuts and other really hurtful policies coming from Washington. So I just want to say that my history with this particular bill is that I was a high school teacher. I'm on a school board. And I also am a French speaker. So I sort of had a natural affinity with a lot of new Americans in my community. And what I saw was that oftentimes there was sort of these amazing nonprofits doing great work and amazing groups doing stupendous efforts to help our new Americans. But there was this lack of coordination, especially across the state. And that's what this bill hopes to get at is really, how do we coordinate? How do we build efficiencies in these incredible organizations that are doing such great work? So as you know, this office has never been more important. Vermont needs more people, and immigrants are our fastest growing demographic. They are vital to Vermont's economy and the future of Vermont. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars to state and federal taxes. They spend money. They are in our communities doing great work. Immigrants in Vermont face challenges. These were some of the challenges that I saw as I started to do this work around licensing and education, language barriers in the workforce and in terms of workforce integration, fragmented services created some inefficiency and blocked legal and social and healthcare access. And foreign-born entrepreneurs lack culturally and linguistic appropriate resources. We have so many folks in this state who have master's degrees from other countries and struggle to find work here. And we need workers. We all know that. We're all working on workforce development and housing as we look at our landscape. This bill is, as I said before, this is a study. Many states in the country have an Office of New Americans. There is an organization that has 19 members. The state of Maine has a great Office of New Americans, and that was really, I looked to them first when I was thinking about starting this work. They've done great work around creating an Office of New Americans. We have a state refugee office, which is incredible, and it is staffed by the marvelous Tracy Dolan. But again, we're looking at funding cuts, and the future is uncertain, which is why more than ever we need this office, and we need to do this preliminary work to get that propped up.
Hey, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Senator Gulick at this time? All right. Well, thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome.
And we have Senator Vihovsky here, who would also like to speak on the bill.
Yes, Joe, I'm happy to.
I will stay and watch my.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Senator Tanya Vihovsky and I reported the bill on the floor. Sorry to be late. This was on my calendar for tomorrow. And of course, then I went to your old committee room forgetting that you had moved. So
It's okay.
So I don't know what Senator Ulick already gave you for information. Some of the changes that we made in the Government Operations Committee were to shrink the size of the study committee. And we did that in conjunction with the stakeholders. We had a sense that the original size was a little unwieldy. And so we brought it down to, I believe, 8 members. And we removed the legislators from, those were 2 of the members we removed were the House member and Senate appointed Senate member. We didn't feel like that was necessary to the underlying conversation. That doesn't mean a legislator couldn't be appointed. The governor or the appointing bodies that have been named could appoint a legislator, which is why you will still see language in the bill that allows for the legislative stipend should a legislator be appointed to the study committee. We heard overwhelming testimony in support of this, both to expand the work that is currently being done to support refugees and new Americans. There's a lot of work that the current office is asked to do that they really don't have the capacity to do. And it was really clear to us that this is a key economic development bill. And so we also made sure that the Economic Development Committees will also get a report back. That was one of the changes we made as well. And we also added in the Secretary of State's office as a to be consulted with. They were very happy not to be named to the study group, but to be consulted with, as our Secretary of State's office touches many aspects of new Americans' lives and wants to make sure that they're part of the conversation and how they best do that, whether it be starting businesses through their corporations department or helping people vote through the voting department. That's not what that's called. And we,
Department.
thank you. And we did there was a fiscal note done on the bill, and the sort of high end estimation for what this might cost was about $6,000. And we heard from a whole host of people that have done this work in other states. There are many states already have this office. We obviously heard from Legislative Council, and then we also heard from the Secretary of State's office and individuals for whom this would be a huge support to them in terms of being full members of our economy and our society. Happy to answer any questions, but that's my sort of overview of the changes that we made from the bill as introduced to the bill as passed the Senate.
Thank you. That's great because that was not duplicative of what we just. Representative Morgan.
It's not a question, it's just a commentary. And anybody that went to General Knight's State of the Guard address last night, heard him talk to it, but I think that the Guard jumped on this one early with bringing in new Americans to the workforce. As well as that now as a result, there is a pathway to very quick citizenship for that demographic of people to get U.S. citizenship. So it's been a win-win for the Guard and has made a difference. And anybody went to that last night. The General introduced some of those new members of the Guard.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's an important.
You have a nexus as well, I realize.
I do, yeah.
I might have known the guy you're married to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions from the table? Representative Waters Evans.
I believe Rep. Coffin had a question.
Rep. Coffin.
No, it was just more commentary on, I'm glad that the Vermont Guard has taken up that where we can do the citizenship, working toward the citizenship by joining, because I know that active duty Army has had that program for a long time. That's how one of my brother-in-laws gained his citizenship, serving in the active Army. So it's good that our Guard is picking that up.
And we do appreciate that those individuals are coming here and want to serve their new country. It's really noble.
Do you have any idea about the timing, I'm guessing that you know when the study is going to be done by.
Yeah, the study is due back to the respective committees in September of 2027. So we gave them a fair amount of time. A lot of the work has been done just due to the nature of our existing Office of Refugee Resettlement, but there is more work to do. So we did give them until 2027. So which brings me to actually two of the changes that we made in government operations that I forgot to mention. One of them is that we shrank the number of meetings, and people did not have an issue with that. We did discuss, though, that because of the length of time, they could always, if they need more meetings, they can come back to us next year and ask for more. The other thing we did was add a charge in there of defining what is a new American, because there is no current definition in statute.
Interesting.
And do you have an estimation of how long it would take before this? Is there like 5 years?
I think we'd have to wait to hear back from this group as to what is needed. It's tough to know how long it would take before we know what we're building.
Representative Stone.
And you said that you heard from other states. We're not reinventing the wheel on this. We're not going to be the pioneers.
We are not.
Recommendations for states that we may want to bring in.
So we didn't hear specifically from other states, but we heard from a national organization that has supported other states in building these offices. And that was Mike Zimmer, the senior policy consultant from the Office of New Americans State Network.
Okay.
So he would be able to speak to what other states have done, but I believe it's more than half of US states already have this office.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you both. You're welcome to sit for the walkthrough if you want to, but you probably have to get back to committee.
Gotta get back to committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll invite our legislative council up, please.
Morning, committee members. Thank you very much for having me as Vice Chair Hanga. For the record, my name is Tim Devlin, Legislative Counsel. For you, committee members, you should have the as passed by Senate version of S56, Act relating to creating an Office of New Americans. And in essence, this is a bill about a study committee and a resulting report to come from it. Specifically, this is to create the Office of New American Study Committee to make recommendations for creating an independent Office of New Americans. Should be a pretty straightforward walkthrough. It's really nothing more than the rote and familiar looking dimensions of setting up a study committee. So we'll start with membership. There are 8 members on this committee, or that will be put onto this committee. Let's see, they'll be composed of the following members. 1, the director of the Vermont Refugee Office, who shall be chair. 2, 1 member appointed by the Commissioner of Labor. 3, 1 member appointed by the Executive Director of the Office of Racial Equity. And then 5 members, so 3 plus 5 brings us to 8, appointed by the governor, who must be New American with lived experience, who shall include, 1 member nominated by the Association of Africans Living in Vermont, 1 member nominated by the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, 1 member nominated by the Vermont Afghan Alliance, 1 member nominated by the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and 1 member nominated by Migrant Justice. And again, because those are all under subdivision 4 there, they have to be appointed by the governor. And one of which must be a New American with lived experience.
I'm going to ask a question.
Yes.
Because that to me isn't clear. Wouldn't all of these members have lived experience, these 5 members?
They could, depending on that, but not necessarily.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Powers and duties. Now this brings us to page 2, subsection C. Committee shall study and submit a written report to the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development and on Government Operations and Military Affairs, and the Senate Committees on Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and on Government Operations. concerning recommendations for creating an independent office of New Americans, including, and here we have the list of particulars. 1, a summary of the current demographic, economic, and public health data regarding New Americans in the state and information regarding the government services being utilized and underutilized by New Americans. 2, a summary or survey of varying and successful approaches to providing government services to New Americans in other states, with particular focus on the topics of the role of education and training institutions, professional licensing, housing, and support for employers and municipalities. 3, in consultation with community-based organizations composed of or serving New Americans, the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, state agencies and departments that provide services to New Americans, Secretary of State's office, municipal government leaders, educational institutions, and business leaders to provide information on a few different subdivisions here. A, the existing state and local level barriers for New Americans faithfully participating in the state's workforce, economy, and business communities. B, additional governmental services needed by New Americans but not yet offered by the state. And C, the transfer or consolidation of existing governmental services for New Americans that would be more efficiently provided by a new office. Back to different items to be covered by this committee. 4, the proposed structure, duties, fundings, and labor needs of an Office of New Americans. And 5, a definition of the term New American for the purposes of an Office of New Americans. D, the committee may create subcommittees, which duties and leadership may, the committee may create subcommittees with duties and leadership to be assigned by the chair. I just want to note that that's at any time, doesn't necessarily have a timetable associated with that. E, assistance. The committee shall have the administrative, technical, and legal assistance of the Agency of Human Services. F, we get to the date of the report. On or before September 1st, 2026, the committee shall submit a written report required by subsection C of the section. G, meetings. This is where we get to a reiteration of the fact that there will be 10 meetings, and we state it in different ways. The chair shall call the first meeting of the committee to occur on or before September 1st, 2025. 2, majority of the membership shall constitute a quorum. 3, committee shall cease to exist on the earlier of September 1st, 2026, or the date that the committee submits its written report. Sorry, H, this is where, I spoke before, this is where it's kind of somewhat hidden that there's 10 meetings as we frame it in budgetary language. Compensation and reimbursement. For attendance at meetings during adjournment of the General Assembly, a legislative member of the committee serving in that member's capacity as a legislator shall be entitled to per diem compensation and reimbursement of expenses pursuant to 2 VSA 23 for not more than 10 meetings. These payments shall be made from monies appropriated to the General Assembly. And I should just note there that although it's not explicit that any legislators are appointed to this, they still may be nominated and appointed by here, but rather than ex officio. Let's see. And then, sorry, I lost my place. Okay, and now we're on subject 3 at the bottom of page 2. Excuse me, no, I misspoke. There we are. Okay, the bottom of page 3. Other members of the committee shall be entitled to per diem compensation and reimbursement of expenses as permitted by 32 VSA Section 1010 for not more than 10 meetings. These payments shall be made from monies appropriated to the Agency of Human Services. Bringing us to the second section of the bill, effective date. This act shall take effect upon passage.
Any questions about what the bill says? Mr. Green, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Oh, you have a question?
I'm gonna knock on wood, let's hope it doesn't happen, but let's say, for whatever reason, one of those organizations that are named, the 5 organizations that are specifically named, what happens if they cease to exist? like, I don't know, they lose their funding and then they're gone. Is there a way to replace it? Is that something we need to work into the bill or?
As written, if one of the nominating members, let's see, the five that is to be appointed by the governor, those cease to exist. No, there's no other way for the governor to pick from another nominated one because it's explicit that each of those entities may nominate only one. So no, one of those could nominate two to compensate or anything like that, or that the governor could go elsewhere to find those individuals because they're exclusively listed there without any sort of catch-all language at the moment.
Were you also referring to number 3 on page 2? The consultation piece, those organizations that were named?
Yeah, was that what I was thinking?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So-
Were we referring to membership or consultation? I apologize.
No, it wasn't the consultation, it was the membership. It specified
Yeah.
5 different organizations. Yeah, just wondering if one ceases to exist, is that something that's possible to work into the bill to say if there's an issue with getting someone from those organizations, then it could be at the governor's discretion to add someone out, like, is that something?
Could, yep.
Like if, for instance, the Vermont Afghan Alliance ceased to exist,
Yes.
how would someone be appointed from an organization that adequately represents that population?
Sure, you could give the governor discretion in selecting an additional or alternative member if one of these nominating entities ceases to exist. Also, for practical reasons, it's hopefully this process would happen sooner than later because you have to nominate in order to get people on there and actually get the committee's work. So
So you could also put like a time frame for that search and appointment to happen in that sentence about if one ceases to exist, the governor shall appoint a similar organization within 30 days of vacancy or something, just so it's like.
sure.
Speak.
Although it's implied that the committee has to meet at a certain point, so anytime really before that is already in the bill. But yeah, additional timelines could be inserted if wanted.
There is a question online, Representative Hooper.
Tim, we already have a fairly robust refugee resettlement program that's been around for 30 years. And United Way has components. Most of the government affiliated providers have, even down to like King Street Center. It sounded in the presentation like they were looking to facilitate people with advanced education to integrate into possibly licensed professions that we have done recently through the Guard and through the Secretary of State. How will this impact the NGO sort of community if it goes forward?
The creation of this study committee itself will have zero impact. The establishment of an office subsequent, if that were to happen, may have impacts, but it's hard to know what they would be without determining exactly what the duties, roles, and structure of this office would look like, which is yet to be determined by the study committee. Unfortunately, I don't really have a great answer. I apologize.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Tim. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
We'll come back to this with more witnesses in the future. It does not look like we have everyone for our next block of testimony, so maybe for